I was 3 years old when my dad deployed. I did not understand why he had to leave. My sister asked him to promise he would come back, and he said he could not do that. I did not recognize the magnitude of the situation, but I knew that in his 6-month absence, my family was very sad. My mom spoke to him twice, and sometimes I walked in on her crying. The day he came back, after missing many holidays, was one of my happiest days.
I was only 4 years old, but old enough to remember the great joy we all felt in my family as we were sitting in front of our very small black and white television and watching the process of pulling down Saddam Hussein's statue. I'll never forget how happy my mother was when 8 months later, Saddam Hussein was found in an underground hiding and captured by the US military force. Finally, my family felt a tiny bit of satisfaction to see the downfall of the murderer of my martyr grandfather and uncle. We were all thankful to the US force.
I was 10 years old. I stood up for the Pledge of Allegiance before each class and used this time to reflect on the sacrifices made by the people serving our country at home and abroad. I found it to be rude when my classmates would talk during the pledge or generally not respect the tradition. I felt grateful and proud when the national anthem would play before every screening at the movie theater on base, showcasing the might of our military at home and abroad.
It had been a few years past the hanging of Saddam Hussein by the time I was 10 years old. My family had already fled my hometown a couple times to avoid Iranian airstrikes and bombs. I did not understand why there were so many explosions, violence and insecurity, and poverty despite the fact that our dictator president was gone and we had all these good American soldiers to protect us. Or so I was told constantly.
I was a young teenager when my local newspaper published a groundbreaking report exposing the rampant sexual assault at bases in my community and in the military overall. I learned how power dynamics could be abused to manipulate innocent people and cover up or discredit legitimate experiences. I wondered how many service members I knew were harmed by these negative experiences.
By the time I was 15 years old, I had started to hate my government and administration so much that at times I was wishing for the times when Saddam Hussein was the ruler. At least he provided enough water, electricity, and good quality food and education. Nevertheless, I was aware that everything was given at the cost of liberty, and that's what my grandfather died for at the age of 34, leaving my mother and her siblings, like the thousands more, as orphans.
Now, as there is collective regret for the military intervention in the Middle East, I read articles detailing shameful treatment of foreign communities and horrific amounts of civilian casualties, primarily resulting from bombing.
Now that I'm older, I am more educated on the invasion of my country by the US military forces and its consequences, which was deaths of thousands, torn infrastructure, and leak of terrorism into the country, and many more.
I meet people who have seen their regions and personal lives negatively impacted by the United States military.
I've been able to interact and converse with people from the United States and get a different perspective on the matter.
I question many of the common practices, but also idealistic solutions of world peace.
I question the authority of the US soldiers as individuals in making big decisions as in invading the whole country.
And now, as the war continues, I struggle to balance my empathy for service members who I have seen make incredible sacrifices and people who have experienced incredible destruction.
But I also subsequently and inevitably keep wondering where would Iraq have been if the US would have left it alone.